On March 12, 1922, Michael Collins attended a pro-treaty rally on Cork City's Grand Parade. Collins, joined by a number of his fellow pro-treaty TDs, passionately spoke to a crowd of what was reported to have been around 50,000 people. The crowd gathered seemed to have been in support of the treaty, and Collins received an enthusiastic reception. But rumblings of the Civil War to come were also demonstrated in the form of organised groups of hecklers and gunshots being fired into the air, as well as the kidnapping of train drivers so supporters were prevented from reaching Cork City. When Collins opened his speech, in an astute political move, he reaffirmed his appreciation for the ordinary people of Ireland. He said, "First of all, I want to thank you, the citizens of Cork, for the way you have received me. Secondly, I want to thank the two small children from the poor district of Cork City for the present of flowers they made me. These bouquets were sent from the lower part of Grattan Street, and I am glad it was one of the poorest parts of Cork City that sent these flowers, because it is the poor people who have always been with us. It is better to have the poor people with us than the rich fat people with us." This received rapturous applause and calls from the crowd to say, "The hearts of the people are with you." Collins went on to launch an attack on the anti-treaty leader Eamon de Valera, who he accused of deserting the ship of the Irish state while absent in America during the Irish War of Independence, and leaving it to men like Collins to steer it into calmer waters. He also attacked Robert Barton, who had changed his position from being a signatory of the treaty to being against it. He reminded the crowd of the basis on which they had entered the talks with Britain, and enunciated the democratic right of the people to reject or accept the treaty. The event was reported in the following day's Irish Examiner as follows. The enthusiasm and magnificence of the reception accorded Mr. Michael Collins and his pro-treaty colleagues on their arrival in Cork on Saturday night left no room for doubt that the citizens of the capital of the southern province are wholeheartedly with the majority of the Irish people in support of the treaty. And this verdict was emphatically endorsed yesterday by a demonstration of enormous dimensions. 50,000 held on the Grand Parade. The spacious thoroughfare having been densely crowded the whole length from South Mall to Patrick Street, while the streets converging on the animated scene were congested to an extent rarely witnessed on occasions of similar popular outpouring. Across the river on Sullivan's Quay, there was a large throng of people who followed the proceedings very keenly. The crowd was so big that there was no chance of passing through, and persons on business had to take a divergent route through the side streets. In the windows of the houses, some hundreds of people were seated and handkerchiefs waved. The greeting which the distinguished Irish leaders received was remarkable for its cordiality and good wishes, which were manifested through the most decisive and unmistakable manner. Attempts were made, it is true, to divest the demonstration of its undoubted significance. Special trains bringing visitors from the remote parts of the county were held up and drivers kidnapped. Revolver shots were frequently discharged into the air in the midst of the great gathering itself. In addition, small groups, evidently organised, occasionally interrupted. The demonstration was an inspiring one, probably unsurpassed in the annals of national movements in the South, and Mr. Collins and his friends should feel thoroughly pleased with the support which their peace proposals have received in the capital of Munster. Mr. Collins himself met with a wonderful reception, and his vigorous and logical exposition of the case of the treaty made a deep impression on the multitude. Commandant McKeown, the popular blacksmith of Ballinallee, received a splendid ovation on his first southern visit, and his manly and impressive demeanour was none the least feature of the memorable day.